So when you're using Google Sheets, a very basic concept that you use all the time when you're working with data is cell references. And we will go through 4 different types of cell references, start with the most basic and work our way through to referencing cells and other files. So the most basic type of cell reference is called a relative cell reference, but it's the type that you just type right in. In this case, it's going to be C5. And let's use uppercase. That's the standard syntax that you are supposed to use, but lowercase works fine too. In this case, we're going to do C5 minus D5. And a few things to keep in mind here. So you always type the column letter first and then the row number. So we wanted C, column C, row 5. And then we're just going to subtract D5, which is the expenses. So we're going to try to calculate operating income. And you would say these are 2 relative cell references. And I'm going to press enter. You will see why they're relative in this next step. So that did a straight subtraction. But if you copy it down to these next 2 rows, and to do that, I'm going to go in the lower right hand corner where you see a little blue square and my cursor turns into a plus sign. I'm going to hold my left mouse key down and then drag, and that's going to copy it down. Now you could also double click on that square and it will copy it down as far as the data on the left goes. So it's kind of smart in that way. I'm going to let go. And here's what I mean by these being relative references. When you look back in cell E5, it was C5 minus D5. When you copied it down, it became C6 minus D6. Without those changing, spreadsheets would work way differently. So those being smart enough to increment makes spreadsheets far easier to work with. And that's relative cell references in their most basic form. Now this next type of cell reference is called a fixed cell reference. And we'll show you where you might want something like that in this next example. So in this case, to calculate the tax, you want cell E5, and then you want to multiply it by D2, which is where the tax rate is. And it works fine there. That's the right amount. I know it's a negative tax, but you had a loss. But if I copy that formula down to F6 and F7, it stops working. And it even gets worse. First it gives a 0 and then it gives an error. What is happening here is that it thinks these are both relative cell references because that's the way you type them in. So if I look at F6, it incremented D2 down 1 because you moved the formula down 1. You have to tell Google Sheets, D2, let's backspace, change D2. That 2 shouldn't move. And how you specify that is you put a little $sign before the 2. That's a fixed cell reference. If the column were moving, so if you were copying these formulas from left to right, you could fix the column as well. We could fix the column here too, but it doesn't matter because the column's not changing. So let's take that out for now to leave it clean. That works. So let's copy that formula down. And just so we're consistent, let's go back into F5 and make that fixed as well, even though that's not causing a problem until you go down. Now we have the same formula in all those cells. And let's just go ahead and fill in the net income because we need it for the next step. I'll do that. I'll copy that down with the plus sign, and I'm going to double click. It copies it down, but it stops here because there's no numbers to the left. And we have a total income of $29,000. So in this example, I have other income, but it's on this other sheet. And I want to pull in the income from there though. So I can do a cell reference. And what you do, start it with an equals like you always do. And then the easiest way is just take your mouse, go over to the other income and select this cell. So I'm going to tap C6. And over here on the right, it shows you what's in the cell on the other sheet. It's a little preview window. And that's what you want. So hit enter. And it brings over that 29,000. If you were to want to automate this or type it in, how you do it is you have these little accent marks. They're like a single quote. And then the name of the sheet. And then you close it off with another accent. And then you have to put an exclamation point and then the cell reference. You get all that in there and you're good. And the last type of reference that we're going to do is a reference to another file. Now, since we're using Google Sheets, it's all online. To find the file, we're actually going to use an address or a URL to it, and I'll show you how to get that. First, you're going to start it with an equal sign, and the function that you use is import range. Even though we're just picking up one cell, it's called a range. And then if you look at the syntax that Google Sheets is telling you, an important thing here, don't forget the quotes. If you don't have the quotes, it won't work. So we're going to put in a quote, and then I'm going to go out of full screen on my browser, and I have this other file open. To get the URL, go to the file that you're linking to, click the share button in the upper right hand corner, and use this URL that it gives you. I just set this so that anyone in my organization can edit. Should probably work with it at whatever setting you have there, as long as you own both files. So I copied that URL. Let's look real quick, sorry. The cell that we want is in D10 here. So remember that. Go back to the link. We're going to go into the formula bar right now to paste this. Close it off with a quote too. Do a comma. Now the next input that it wants is the cell reference. As long as it's on the first sheet in that file, you don't need the name of the sheet as well. If you do need the name of sheet, just do it the way that we did the last cell reference. You can see it here. I'm moving my mouse. But the other quirk here is that it needs quotes. You usually don't need a quote on cell reference, so it's easy to forget it when you're doing this. But let's surround it in quotes. Now remember, we wanted D10. So let's go D10. Close it off with quotes and a parentheses. Now, if this is the first time doing this, when you hit enter, it's going to ask for your permission. But I've done this before when I was trying to get this video together, so it's not going to ask me. It's going to take a second, think about it, and then it pulled it in. We can change that format if you want. A lot of times you can't tell what format it's going to come over until you see it. Let's get that $sign off. Let's take the decimal points away. And now everything looks real nice. So that's it. You have relative, you have fixed, you have to another sheet, and then you have to another file. So I hope that was helpful to you. If you like this tutorial and you want to watch others just like it, subscribe to my channel in the lower right hand corner. Thanks. Bye.